listening to the House by the Video Store podcast.
There's no more room in hell. The dead will walk near.
We have such sights to show you.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Praise God, boy.
Welcome to the House by Video Store podcast. I'm your host, William. Joining me today will be Derek.
Hello.
And Sean.
Hello.
And on this episode, we'll be discussing Halloween 2, the one from 1981, not the Rob Zombie sequel. With the unicorns,
Yeah, the unicorn and the
ghost,
angel.
and the ghost Sherry Moon Zombie, and that's Rob Zombie.
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. We should just have Rob Zombie music playing in the background the entire time.
I like
But,
Rob Zombie's music.
No, I do, but just generic stuff that's not. It sounds enough like him, but not enough that we can get in trouble.
He
for
should just start making movies based on the song titles, like make Living Dead Girl, make Dragula.
Wait a minute. But if you get Dragula, could we get RuPaul to be in it and just be him killing people? Because I think he'd probably actually do that, and it'd probably be a fun movie.
But yeah, we're discussing the 1981 Halloween 2 that was directed by Rick Rosenthal, who also
You almost
directed
said Rick Moranis. Since he's back.
Halloween Resurrection. Trick or Treat.
Motherfucker.
So we'll be discussing that. But before that, we'll go through some recent news and some things going on. So a trailer has been dropped recently for Shane Black's The Predator. So the newest movie in the Predator series. And a lot of people really hate this trailer and think the movie's going to be the worst thing ever made.
Well, I think it's mainly like fanboys. Me and Sean, I think we all kind of talked about it, and it's like, it's what do you can't rehash the same movie that came out in, because I love Predator, but Predator 1, 2, if you do the same movie, what's the point? Like,
I mean, Predators was a good in the middle because it was like a new planet, but it was basically, you know what I mean? Like that was enough of like in the jungle.
It was essentially like the first.
I kind of don't want another just in the jungle Predator after we had Predators not that long ago. You know what I mean? Like within the past 10 years or whatever.
Yeah.
I think if you do, because I think that people get upset too because they're like, oh, it's not doing exactly what we wanted it to do, which was essentially to make the remake the first movie with Arnold again.
I don't want that because we've already had it. You know,
and
Carl Weathers can't come back in it, so I don't want it.
And you know, and two people who aren't Shane Black fans or aren't really aware of his work, because a lot of Shane Black movies are just taking, you know, a character and putting them in a situation and it kind of subverts what you would expect out of it.
And some people hate subversion also.
They
you know what I mean?
don't-
Like there are some people who know of Shane Black's work and hate it because they hate subversion.
It's kind of like with a lot of people that are Marvel fans hate Iron Man 3, but it's like, well, it made a crap ton of money, but it was actually, it just kind of, you said, subverted everything that was in there.
You had him mostly out of the suit, and it had, you know, a switcheroo with the character. So, and you know, so much they pissed off people so bad they made a short film that actually filled in the gaps to kind of retcon that a little bit. And so I just think in general, a lot of times, so there's this market of people who hate the Cabin in the Woods and love the Evil Dead remake.
Yeah, and
it's like, so there's the people that are in those camps.
The Evil Dead remake, or
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's the people who love the Evil Dead remake or movies like that and hate Cabin in the Woods.
Yeah.
And I think that, you know, I would assume there's a lot of crossover people that like both.
You'd almost think
but
because we're in that group.
But there's the people who just hate something that does not do exactly what they think it will based on the name and the poster and the trailer. So I think with The Predator, I mean, we'll see what the box office results are, but the basic idea is that it's going to be predators in suburbia. So there's like in a mall, because there's been some photos from the movie's release that shows like a predator attacking someone in a mall, and you have
What's a mall?
Yeah, I mean even these days, and then you have or maybe it's just a store, maybe not a mall, and you have, you know, Keegan-Michael Key in it, and you got, you know, Thomas Jane. So you have other people in it. Because, you know, even though Tom Jane's been in a bunch of action movies, he's also, you know, getting to be a little bit on the older side. So not the Tom Jane from the early 2000s Punisher or whatever. I don't know. He hasn't aged that much.
And you got the guy from there was a villain in Logan in it too. I can't think of his name. He was really
Hoyt
good.
or something. Holbrook.
For me, like, again, I was showing up for Shane Black. I like Predator, obviously, but you know, it's not like anything I hold up. Like, you know, Blade Runner. I'm like, please don't screw this up. You know, Predator. There's been Predator sequels and stuff like that.
Aliens vs. Predators.
So you know, I was like, whatever. But the trailer didn't do like a lot for me.
But to be
also
fair,
I
there
was
wasn't
like,
much
it's
there.
explosions and stuff like that. Like I'm waiting to see what he does with the story and the characters. Like a lot of times his films, it's the dialogue and the character relationships that make those films so strong. I mean, that's why you watch Lethal Weapon over and
another-
over. You're not
yeah.
watching for the gunfights.
No,
you
you're
know what I
watching
mean?
for that.
There's some good sequences with gunfights, but normally it's the character-based stuff within the gunfight that's good.
That's why, like, when you have a teaser trailer that's 1.5 minute long,
Yeah.
I don't expect to get that much out of it, because it's like, okay, you want to see a Predator.
It's proof the movie exists.
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
proof
it.
the movie exists, and it's like you'll get more as it goes. But again, like I'm a little different than you, William. I like to see as much of the trailers as I can on some stuff.
Yeah, I'll watch pretty much all of these because this is not
Because
something like
it's not gonna
usually
spoil
I watch
anything.
the-
A
I'll
Predator
watch-
is going to kill people. There you go.
For something that's not like my most anticipated movie of the year or whatever, I'll watch the teaser trailers, but I typically try to avoid full trailers because they often give away too much plot.
Yeah.
But again, like with me,
Or you see something from a trailer that shows like 2 characters and not 4 characters, and it looks like it's pretty late in the movie because they look kind of like bloodied up. And then you see the movie, you're like, oh, well, based on this, I know these 2 people die.
Yeah, that or like something like Star Wars. I don't want to watch a trailer for because like it's kind of like new material. Whereas like with like Predator or like Deadpool, you kind of already know what's going to happen, so it's not a big deal to me. But like Predator, I from what it was a very small clip. It kind of just reminds me of Venom. You don't get much out of it.
I think it looks better than Venom to
No,
me.
it looks better, but I'm saying it's one of those things where it's like there's not much to go off of. You just got a tiny tidbit of information.
Something else that I've seen a lot of people rail against is like, this movie has a kid in it. There's a time and place for kids in movies, and it's not in Predator.
Well, and Predator 2 had one of our favorite lines. Want
some candy?
So I'm okay with it. It's like, oh, wait a minute. Didn't a couple Friday 13s have kids?
I mean,
And-
Corey Feldman, yeah.
And then there's kids in
Halloween
Halloween
4 and 5.
Almost every horror movie ever.
The kid in this movie is going to shave his head and put on fake dreadlocks to look like the Predator
I
mother.
would say-
well, like in a couple of the movies we reviewed the highest lately, Quiet Place had kids. It had kids.
Well,
it was about kids.
What I would say
You
is
know.
Watch Iron Man 3. There's a kid in that, and that doesn't impact the movie at all.
No.
So
it actually works.
I'm already forgetting who's putting out Predator. Who owns this? Is it 20th Century Fox?
Fox.
Yeah. So
Disney.
they have Alien as well.
Yeah.
And what else do they have? Because they said the Predator's gone to other planets. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are they going to integrate into this?
Yeah,
like,
'cause
you would
it's-
think they'd be able to integrate some of
Do they
the.
own
Yeah, because the other thing is they've upgraded their DNA with other species, and people are like, oh my god, that sounds. It's like the same people that are saying that often play games where you upgrade your character, and
Yeah, again, too, I don't want the same exact Predator. Like, I don't need to. I don't know. It's
what else
just-
are you gonna? So like Predator, even if you hated Predator 2 when it's set in LA, there's not a ton different you're going to get with the Predator in an urban environment.
I mean, I liked Predator 2.
unless
was,
you start changing.
Here's
up
the
some.
thing too, like the first Predator where you're watching it. I mean, it's hard for me to think back like, oh, first time watching it or whatever, because I kind of just saw it as a kid. You know what I mean? Like I never think about the first time I watched it, but a lot of times the fun in some of these movies when you are facing like something like this, like a threat, is you slowly learn about its abilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And there would be no surprise if you had the exact same abilities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's
So
like,
now
oh,
they
they've
can
got-
at least surprise the audience a little bit and give you something new. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
I want that.
If everything is like, oh, he's using his invisibility, he's using
Yeah, like
his
you've already 2 steps ahead of
shoulder
the Predator.
cannon, he's using the claws. It's like that's kind of what we know about him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
I think
wanna
the Predator
see
needs to be 2 steps ahead of the audience
Yeah.
and the other characters. You know,
Yeah, because like you
to be
said,
a threat.
we've seen a lot of different kills by the Predator. So if you just give me the same stuff,
Oh,
you know,
isn't Jake Busey going to be in the new one as the son of Gary
Yeah,
Busey's
yeah, I
character
think
from
so.
Predator 2? So it's one of those things where Shane Black is somebody who the nice guys. They had kids in that movie.
Man, she was so well cast. She was one of the best characters.
So I would say like just having a kid in a movie like this to me, it's still rated R. I mean. If you watch Shane
But
Black
you-
movies,
but
it's
the
going to
thing is
subvert
like-
things, and I'm sure there'll be like cool action scenes where you have like things going on concurrently, and
the kid could just have an extremely small role.
Yeah.
At the end of this movie, he could have 10 minutes or less of screen time.
but then
So it's like, why is it even?
I mean, I assume he pulled out a tracker in the beginning, but part of me was almost like, is he controlling that ship because the way it was crashing?
Well, I
you know?
think that's from what
Yeah.
I've read. I think that's kind of what
That's
it is.
what it looked like he was controlling
Yeah, like the
it.
control he got
Yeah.
moves the ship.
but yeah, I mean, it's
Still,
still
like the plot synopsis thing is like he uses it and crashes a ship on Earth, and that's why the Predators.
Yeah, because basically just a guy that find like the was it Hoyt Holbrook or whatever his name is. He finds some like a ship that has like Predator stuff in it, and then he ships it back to his house. So I guess to not let the government get it or something.
Which kind of
And
pulls
then-
from like the original Area 51
And
story.
then
So-
his kid opens it up, and then it draws.
This
the
is just a
predators.
parallel for the importance of gun control, and like just like Lethal Weapon and Lethal Weapon 2, like had all those like anti-gun posters in the background. You know what I mean? Like all the messaging.
Yeah, so we'll have to wait and see. The movie comes out this August. And too, like if Disney buys, well, also too, so Disney was wanting to buy 20th Century Fox and made an offer. Apparently, Comcast has made a better offer. That was like an all cash deal instead of cash and stock. So we'll see where all this stuff goes, but I'm not sure what regulatory agencies would allow to happen in the end or not.
Look, it's not good if Disney owns Fox.
No.
I'm totally in agreement with that.
I don't want Comcast to own
That's
them
the
either,
thing.
though.
And thinking about Disney at least began as a place, that's valued creativity, and they at least seem to put some value in their creators, despite firing, directors from Star Wars, and like it seems like because they want to make good movies. You know what I mean? If they didn't care, the Marvel films. Comcast is there to make some damn money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There,
Like
they're there to take more of the content and put it behind their paywalls.
Yes, yeah,
so to
they're-
say, if you want to see, I'm just trying to think of something off the top of my head, like so the FX shows like Legion or American Horror Story, you need to subscribe to Comcast, Xfinity, blah 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 blah, in order to get it. So I think that like content providers or like cable internet providers owning all of the content producers is bad because if the people who make the content own the channels that you can use to view it, they can use that to clamp down on their competition and make it more, because they would also own a part of Hulu because of that. So it's just, I don't know. I hope all these
Yeah.
mergers fail.
yeah,
me
I
too.
hope they get shot
or
down.
blocked or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I hope Fox just stays Fox and keeps all their stuff.
Because like I agree with you though. Like if they do get bought out, I'd much rather it be by Disney because I think you would get. Not saying anything about
Yeah, I
money.
would hope-
'cause
I would
at the
hope
end
it
of the
wouldn't
day,
happen
yeah, I don't
at
want it to
all,
happen, but they do seem to value creativity more.
And hopefully they would
So-
keep the brands separate enough
Yeah,
because they
it seems
realize
like they
that
would.
because they realize that
well, I can tell you that as soon as they get it, they're immediately throwing Deadpool in the next one.
So
it
here's
ain't
the
gonna
thing.
happen.
Yeah, I
It
mean,
won't work.
Deadpool is something where I don't know they'd integrate R-rated characters into their. Because even though the movies have characters say shit and other stuff and talk
Well-
about, and Thor Ragnarok talk about freaking orgies.
Well, I just watched Guardians of the Galaxy 2 like the last week at some point. They murder like 150 people in that movie. Like in one scene, Yondu with his little arrow, like there's literally probably
Yeah, that
100
long
people he
sequence.
kills.
Yeah.
That's just in one sequence. So it's like it could work.
the
It would
only
just-
difference is, as dumb as it sounds, like Deadpool killing people with his sword and all that.
gory.
Yeah, 'cause
The thing is, like, that'll be fine. I think the main thing is just like him having like a kinky sex scene or something is what they would draw the line at.
Yeah.
and some of the things he
Well, look,
says.
Disney's put pornographic images in
apparently-
shows before.
Well, and
TV
two, like in the
movies.
trailer for Deadpool 2, he's like talking to a character. He's like, "You're really dark. Are you sure you're not from the DC universe?"
Yeah.
And then like that drew laughter from people in the crowd. I'm sure that makes some people like fuming mad. They're like, "What?
Yeah.
Batman? Batman?"
Speaking of that, James Gunn, did you see how he like made the offhanded comment to TMZ?
Yeah, he was in an airport and somebody said, "If you had Batman in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, would you kill him?" And he was just like, "I'm sure." And like, how'd you do? He's like, "I don't know, throw him off a roof or something." And then like he started getting a bunch of direct messages and hate messages from people like, "You wouldn't kill, you idiot, you killed Batman." And then it's like all kinds of like misspelled words and missing words and terrible grammar.
It's like,
comments.
look, I love that stuff as much as me. I think we all do because of what we,
Yeah.
But it's like nothing like that makes me physically mad.
Like I still stand by the fact that like Batman Returns is one of my favorite comic movies, even though it's not really based on a comic and it's not really based on the character of
but
Batman
it's so
either.
weird and different that it's
a Tim
good.
Burton movie.
Yeah, it's a Tim Burton.
Did you see his other tweet about it? He was like, "Sorry, look, I'll just clarify that I meant to say that I could kill Batman myself in a very bare-fisted fight because I'm stronger than he is." Or something.
And then
he tweeted
also,
that again.
and then he also came back eventually and said, like, I'll never work on a Batman movie at this point.
Yeah.
It's not very likely. So
Yeah, it's
don't
not
worry
very
about
likely
it.
because he's got the Guardians, and he's actually seems like he's going to be an integral role in the MCU moving forward.
Well, and two, like, hasn't he? He's been linked to like being involved with getting a Toxic Avenger 5 produced for Troma.
Yeah, I saw
Well, that's one thing I like about James Gunn is he just seems like he
Because there's a
he's all over the place.
Toxic Avenger 5 that's in the works and a remake that's in the works. So
We need to cover one of the Toxic Avengers because have y'all watched them?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a kid, and I watched the show as a kid.
The Toxic
too.
Crusaders, was that the show?
Yeah, I think so.
Like, because remember that
How
was
did they get made as a
I
kid
had
show?
the action figure too.
Yeah, it was on the verge of good taste, and
Yeah.
but yeah, so we'll probably get to some of those Troma things at some point because most of them are on their YouTube channel for free, except for the newest things. But yeah, so that was the Predator. That so the other thing, so on the previous episodes we had mentioned that Ash versus Evil Dead season 3 is the last season of the show, and it ended. There won't be a season 4, and it's very unlikely there would ever be anything else involving Bruce Campbell and the Evil Dead because he said he retired the
unless they just give him so much money that he could not refuse.
So I think what I remember reading was leading up to the show being created. So before that, like Sam Raimi and Ivan Raimi, his brother, had talked about like writing a story for an Evil Dead 4. They kind of had like 2 story ideas, which is I think kind of based on the ending of Army of Darkness. There's like the original ending that I think may have been the ending in some foreign territories, but it's on like the DVDs and Blu-rays. A special feature is Ash taking too much of the potion and waking up too far into a post-apocalyptic future versus the standard U.S. ending where he goes back and he's at S-Mart talking to his coworker Ted Raimi, and then a Deadeye attacks and he wins. So there's the idea was kind of think that they wanted to have like a post-apocalyptic Evil Dead 4 or more just kind of like a standard starting off where the U.S. ending ended. And then they ended up just writing it as a TV show because they didn't think they can get the budget for it. So let it sink in the fact that the director of the multi-billion-dollar franchise Spider-Man films could not, in his head, figure out a way to get the funding for this movie because Drag Me to Hell theoretically had a wider berth of the audience because it's an original property that doesn't require having seen prior movies that are, essentially cult hits. So,
and that was PG-13, it's...
And that movie, it made money back, and, worldwide it ended up making enough money. But it wasn't like a huge, runaway success. And they, coming off of Spider-Man 3, he could not get, $50 million to make Evil Dead 4. Yeah. He could get money to make Oz the Great and the Powerful or, to be involved with other properties. But for Evil Dead, they could not get a $50 million budget to make it because... To be fair, the audience may not be there. There's an audience that shows up that, it's like the fanboys. He'll maybe make like $20, $30 million. But then a lot of those people are also the ones who pirate it because a lot of fan bases are terrible about that. Yeah. So they couldn't get a movie made with the budget they wanted, but they were able to get a TV show greenlit at Starz. So they had 3 seasons of the show. And if you break it down, I think like 15 feature length movies worth of content out of those 3 seasons. And the show has come to a conclusion and Ash is done with the character, or, Bruce Campbell's done with Ash. There could be some spin-off or offshoot in the future, but based on, I could see them making a sequel to the remake because Fede Alvarez recently on his Twitter posted, what's your next movie, Evil Dead 2 or Don't Breathe 2? And then people voted for Evil Dead 2.
Yeah, because Don't Breathe sucked.
And, I liked it, but I haven't...
It was crap.
But I don't think that they'll make another Evil Dead Bruce Campbell, Ash, in order for him to get lured out of his retirement from the character, they need to make an offer that was an amount of money that they will never make for a movie like that because the audience couldn't support the show, much less, another movie. So we have to be lucky we got what we got.
Or an incredible pitch to him. Let's just say there was enough money to make something. Like, unless they had an incredible pitch, just like with the Halloween, the new Halloween. You know what I mean? Like, that was a pitch that they sold Jamie Lee Curtis on and John Carpenter on. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, unless somebody figures out something, but I don't expect that happening.
The biggest thing, though, that I think helps Halloween is, like, Jamie Lee Curtis is up here. Bruce Campbell was like...
Well, the thing is, like, Bruce Campbell has one of the most supportive cult fan bases for an actor, but it's not a mainstream, really... Because people are aware of him because he's been in commercials for stuff.
I mean, people know... Most people probably have seen him in something.
He was in the Spider-Man movies in smaller roles, so he's somebody that has a face that people are like, oh, I know that guy, but he's not...
like Shooter McGavin from...
Happy Gilmore.
Happy Gilmore. Like, everybody knows who that guy is. And they're aware of it, but they don't know his name.
But the show came to a conclusion. Recently, I rewatched season 1 and 2 on Netflix because it's seasons 1 and 2 are on there. And the episodes are, when you take out all the commercials and all the after the episode things, they're less than 30 minutes an episode. They're like 25 minutes or something. So it's a relatively quick watch if you haven't rewatched it. I still think that season 2, the final episode of season 2, like half of it was really good, and then what they did with the very end was kind of uninspired.
So that's how I feel about everything they did.
Well, it's basically just because they fired the showrunner in that last episode because they just really clashed on where to go with like the last 10 minutes of the episode. And then they ended up doing what he had talked about anyway, just kind of modified in season 3. But yeah, so rewatch the show. Like, you know, Bruce Campbell owned the role as Ash. He did an awesome job. And it's sad that we won't see it come back, but the show at least did end and didn't go out in a complete low note or anything like that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It, like the last episode, despite being like big stakes with big things happening, still felt kind of small, but that's probably just like a budgetary thing.
Yeah, but also too, they ended this one more definitively in some respects versus the other season endings. You know what I mean? Like this kind of changed a lot of things. You know what I mean? The end of this one.
Well, what's funny is, without spoiling too much, like it loops back to kind of where Army of Darkness would have left us. So. With the original ending. So it, you know, it kind of goes in that direction. But the Evil Dead movies always ended in an open-ended way because the first movie ended with, you know, the unseen force approaching Ash as he's screaming and ended. The second movie ended with him waking up in the Middle Ages. And then Army of Darkness, the original ending would have had him waking up in a post-apocalyptic future. The theatrical ending that was here in the U.S. just had him killing a deadite at S-Mart. So the series has always been kind of open-ended and, you know, the continuity shifts and things like that. So the way it ended was just in line with that. But it did make you wonder, like, well, what would they do? What would they have done if they had, you know, not even 10 episodes, 6 episodes, 4 episodes? Like, what would they have done? And at this point, we probably won't see that unless it's in a video game or comic or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I was happy that we got the show. I was, you know, sad to see it go. But you know, it's season 3. You can still watch it on the Stars app. I'm sure it'll be on DVD and Blu-ray at some point. And then if it gets on Netflix, I assume if all 3 seasons are on Netflix, the show will have a much longer shelf life and get seen by a lot more people. But at a certain point, though, if you have too many instances of Bruce Campbell with the chainsaw killing deadites, that could get old.
Yeah, I feel like 3 seasons was not a bad place to end because it wasn't like it was 1 or 2 seasons where it was just kind of a little bit of a tease, you know?
Yeah.
It's like it was enough to make me satisfied, but also wanting more. Yeah. You know what I mean? To where it didn't run its course.
They've made like 37 seasons of The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And it's like the same stuff happens. Like kill zombie, somebody dies, kill zombie, somebody dies, kill zombie. Somebody dies.
Yeah, well, and 2, you know, like Lucy Lawless was great on the show, but if you continue to have Ruby be a bad guy and then a good guy and then a bad guy, that would have gotten old too. So
but
the way
happened with Evil Dead, not Evil Dead, Walking Dead forever.
But the way that they ended up doing things, I think, worked out well enough and gave you like you brought Ash back, you had him kind of own up to what he needed to do, and then you introduced the concept of having a daughter and, you know, actually having something to fight for. Well, that was all over promotional materials for it, but. You know, so overall, I think that the show was, you know, I was glad that it exists. Now, probably, you know, if it's on Netflix, then I'll do that. Otherwise, I'll buy the Blu-rays. But I was glad that it exists.
I hope there's a collection now that it's all the way over with like a bunch of special features. I don't know if there will be. I don't know if Stars will put more money into like producing some docs or something. You know what I mean?
The Book of the Dead editions of the show.
Like I don't know, but maybe they will. But yeah, I definitely hope they release some like mega awesome edition or something.
Yeah,
because I would buy that.
And then we got to, like, so Sean, you and I, and then, like, your wife Nicole and Julie got to see Bruce Campbell when he came in town for his Last Fan Standing book tour. And I actually got to go up on the stage during the contest thingy, and he gave me $10.
Yeah.
I eventually spent that $10.
He was a contestant.
And because he was giving people money as they went out of the game or whatever, and he shook my hand and stuff.
Maybe I'd give him money.
And, like, I've seen some people talking about how, like, and I'm pretty sure that it was somebody from the one we went to complaining about, like, on an article that Bloody Disgusting had posted about how Bruce Campbell was rude to him at the show. But if I remember correctly, it's a guy that was he wasn't heckling on purpose, but Bruce Campbell had said something. He's, like, stand up and, like, trying to have a back and forth during the middle of this show with them.
Yeah.
And then Bruce Campbell wasn't being like rude and like throw him
He
out.
was trying to,
Move it along and shut it down.
yeah, but also be entertaining. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not being like stern.
So it's kind of like if you've ever went to any comedy show ever, and
Yeah.
somebody like we go
But-
to a bunch of the roasts,
But I'm
and
sure
people
that
always
happened at probably almost every
Yeah.
one
Oh, yeah,
because
it's
of the
gonna
type of
happen.
fans he also draws, which I'm, we're all fans, but yeah, I've seen, when I saw him here at Fright Night like years ago, there would be somebody that was kind of, and he'd have to shut them down and make them the butt of the joke because they did not take a hint. You know?
Which is like anybody, like if you're doing your job, regardless of what it is, and even if you like somebody, they come over, keep bothering you. At some point, you got to shut down.
Yeah.
Well, and two, like
You know?
they said that like after the show when he was signing autographs, he was never looked up from the table and was rude. And it's like when we went up there, he said he was talking to us.
Maybe it's because you were an ass and you kept like stopping everything and bothering him every 10 minutes. That might be why.
Because the movie that Julie's going to be in coming out one this fall, like they were still casting for one of the roles, and she just asked him like not like asked him to be in the movie, just asked like, so what's your interest in like independent movies these days? And then, at that point, I could understand him being more rude about it. But he's like, no, he's like, I never thought I'd be in the, he's like, it depends. He's, at this point, I'm just looking for my legacy. I'm not really, just looking for a paycheck to come in for one day and be in some small movie. And he's like, so, if they can reach out to my agent or whatever. And he's like, never say never. I didn't think the show would come back, but it did.
Yeah.
What if he whatever he signed for her, he started crumpling. He's like, "Suck it, nerd!" And he threw it down. And just
So
gets
I
up.
mean, even in a point where he could have been like perturbed by that, he was super nice.
Yeah.
So
but again, it might not be the question. It might just be how you did it.
yeah.
Like, hey, look, I'm making a short film to go be in it. And it's like, no,
Yeah. Well,
you've been
she was-
yelling at me.
she
You've
was
been
just-
haggling me for like 20 minutes.
And
Shut
she
up.
wasn't putting on the spot.
Yeah.
She was just saying like, so what's your general interest in things like that?
Here's this orphan child that's going to ask you this question.
And then
Don't disappoint him.
So I have now the Book of the Dead editions of Evil Dead 1 and 2 signed by Bruce Campbell. So that's cool. But so Ash vs. Evil Dead ended, so you should go check it out because it was enjoyable, and they did have a conclusion that didn't just end with a whimper. So it did make me sad that we'll never get to see what they were planning to do with that fourth season, because I think there were plans to do a fourth
He's
season.
going to work at Baskin
but-
Robbins.
Yeah, I think it's better to imagine that one because I don't know if the budget could handle.
Yeah, it would have probably came up short because you need,
A lot of money.
Movies that have done similar things were like $150 million budgeted movies.
Yeah.
But so those are things that were in the news and have gone on recently. So now we'll move into our review of Halloween 2, the movie that came out in 1981. So the original Halloween was 78. I mean, the movie was in theaters for a long time and then, had a longer shelf life than movies do today, where a movie's out in theaters and then it's on Blu-ray within 3 months.
Yeah, about
Because Jumanji was on Blu-ray at the same time it was in theaters still because it was making money. So it was on video and in theaters.
Yeah.
Back in the day of Halloween, it would show for a year before they even...
I mean, I just saw Black Panther like 2 weeks ago, and you can buy it digitally.
Yeah, you
now.
can buy it digitally.
And I think you'll be able to buy it on disc like the day this podcast comes out.
Well, the only thing I want to say is, how do you think, just real quick, how do you think DC feels knowing that Avengers could break $2 billion?
oh yeah, I know.
The
And they haven't even had a movie that's broken
Well, the
$1 billion.
fact that Avengers Infinity War made more in its first weekend than Justice League did in its entire run has to be disheartening. Because if you think about it, they've owned the full stable of characters to put in movies. I think Warner Brothers has owned DC as a company for decades. So they've owned all their own characters to put in the same movie for decades and haven't been able to do it. And they've watched their opponent go from financial bankruptcy to taking their B-level characters and making them outgross Batman and Superman, which are the, for a long time were the gold standard.
Black Panther, outgrossed how many Star Wars films? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
And it's
everyone,
and
but
to be fair,
Force
like,
Awakens.
just like you said, like he was a B-level
Yeah.
hero. So you're taking B-level characters and you're making
Yeah.
Well, you have a
billions of
movie,
dollars.
a movie with Star-Lord and Gamora, and so characters that nobody in the mainstream never heard of outgrossed. With the first Guardians of the Galaxy made
Batman versus Superman,
$370 million domestic, so it did.
We're talking worldwide. Any more you do worldwide. Domestic
But,
gross.
But back to Halloween.
Back to Halloween. Dr. Loomis.
So Halloween 1 was in theaters for a while, and it was a huge, huge success. One of the most successful independent films of all time. And inspired a ton of slashers movies. Because, we talked before about a few episodes ago or whenever about The Final Exam. There was just one of those, slasher boom movies. So what's funny is I saw somebody making an article saying that the slasher boom went from 78 to 84. And then someone in the comments well, I'm really curious about this. Are you sure that's right? I don't think there was it's no, come on. There was a period of time where Halloween even though it wasn't necessarily the first, because before Halloween you had Black Christmas and Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Psycho and other movies, you had Halloween put into effect the template that they used for the next 6 years to make like 100 movies.
Probably more years than that, but yeah, during the boom.
Well, the boom was when they were making a bunch of them because they were super profitable. So you know during that period of time, you had Prom Night, you had
Friday the
Terror
13th.
Train, you had like Friday the 13th, which was another successful franchise.
But wasn't that essentially made because of like the success of...
Well, Halloween was so successful that Sean Cunningham decided he wanted to make a series. So they had like bought newspaper ads and the rights to the name before they even made a movie. and it worked for them. And they made movies that people consider to be classics, or at least horror classics. So Halloween's success at that point in time couldn't be overstated because it would push an entire genre to the forefront. And slashers were profitable because they didn't require a lot of money to make, and they made good money. They did well in video.
And Kevin Bacon was in one.
And he was in the first Friday the 13th.
It's weird, the trajectory too of say Nightmare on Elm Street's Halloween and Friday the 13th. I'm not going to say Friday the 13th ever started out extremely strong. Those are fun movies, but
Yeah,
but it's interesting that you think like, oh, what would have happened to Halloween if it wouldn't have had any competitors? Well, it seems like they kind of just pretty much did it to themselves. Like all these franchises continue to get worse, basically. You know what I mean? Like it's
it's one of those things. Like the first 3 Halloweens, I know the third one's its own thing, but it's still like overall a decent movie. I enjoyed it. We're good. Like Nightmare on Elm Street, the first 3 are pretty good. Same thing Friday the 13th, and it seems like Friday the 13th, and then after the
has
third
some
movie,
good ones.
it still has some good ones, but it just seems like the overall trajectory, especially with Halloween after the third, regardless how you feel about it, just whoop.
So even though if there was copycats, like it didn't really affect the fact that Halloween kind of
Killed
you know what I mean?
itself.
Shit the
Well,
bed
too, when you
itself.
think about it, so Halloween, so it had the first movie in 78, which is really what relaunched like the slasher era, and was the reason a lot of people ripped that strategy off and made those movies. And then over time, those movies started to not do as well at the box office, and parents groups got more involved in being against the movies. Like, was it Silent Night, Deadly Night? Had people that protested it because it was like a
Christmas
slasher.
kinda.
Because nothing bad's ever happened on Christmas.
But you have the era where those started to decline. But what's interesting with Halloween is, so you had Halloween 1 in 78 and Halloween 2 in 81. So they took a little while to get it out. They didn't immediately follow it up like that same year. They took a couple years to get to it.
They realized, oh wait, this is making money. Like,
and 2, so John Carpenter was involved in the writing and the music for 2, but not directing it. There are rumors that he did some of the reshoots for it to kind of up the gore level and things.
well, I wonder if I think the opening of this is super strong. Like, I wonder if, and so the opening of this film is like first person perspective from Michael Myers, and it's been a long time since I've watched this, but basically that set the tone for me and made me like this film, think that I like this film more than I actually did when I rewatched it recently. But if you think about it too, it actually opens up a lot like the first Halloween, where you have that first person perspective on Michael when he's a kid. Now he's an adult post Halloween 1. You know what I mean?
To me, rewatching the movie, the opening scenes, prior to the hospital stuff, so him just in the neighborhood walking around or whatever, like I was just wanting more of that.
Yeah,
when I was watching it, I was like, oh, come on.
That was amazing. And in my mind, there was more of that. And it almost, even though it was just this first person, it almost felt like a documentary feel, and it kind of really put you into the movie and what was happening. But something about the gore, we'll probably get ripped to shreds because of all the super fans. If anybody listens to this, it's like a mega fan because of all the stuff they watch. But just on that DVD that I had, I was like reading some of this stuff, and or maybe I read it somewhere else. But apparently, Deborah Hill and John Carpenter, like they actually didn't lean into the gore. You know what I mean? It wasn't like Friday the 13th, and they didn't really want to show anything too over the top. And that's something I hadn't really thought about much before until I had kind of read that. Like in my mind, like it's not like he's impaling anybody and ripping their heads off and stuff like that. But
this
that
is
is a
like-
huge difference between this Halloween film and the first one versus any of the Friday the 13th.
Well, because like at the end of the day, in these first 2, like he was just a dude killing people. He wasn't supernatural. He wasn't.
Well, he was able to stand a lot of bullet.
Yeah, but I'm saying, but like it's still like like people have lived through a bunch of shots before. But it's one of those things where it's like he wasn't able to walk up and just smash somebody's head with his hands and make their eyeball pop out. And hit
so
you,
between the first Halloween and the second Halloween, they did like triple the body count because the first Halloween didn't kill that many characters, and it did it in a pretty bloodless way. Well, there wasn't much blood in it.
Even though he killed them viciously, they didn't. Like you said, they didn't.
The second Halloween actually had just like an entire room where like blood is on the floor. And the most useless character in the series, and we're doing full spoilers.
Yeah, I mean, actually, this movie doesn't even exist anymore.
Yeah,
so.
Jimmy, the character Jimmy is one of the most useless characters because he walks in the room where the one nurse, like Michael, apparently put like an IV in her and just has blood dripping out. So he walks in, he goes to leave, and he slips and falls and hits his head on the ground. And he later goes to the car that Laurie Strode is hiding in. And he goes to start it, and then he passes out, and then it's never seen from again. So he is worthless. Apparently, there's like an alternate non-canon TV ending where he's alive when they take Laurie away or something. But
does anybody care about Jimmy? No.
No. Well, there are fan blogs about it. I looked it up.
He's still in that car trying to start it.
And he's like, this car's going. But yeah, so the movie, like the opening part where you just directly follow the ending of Halloween is, I think, very effective.
So another thing though, it's almost wobbles so much. It's almost like he's drunk a little bit. And I thought, oh, this is like early days of the Steadicam.
Yeah.
But again, on the notes for that, apparently it was I probably wrote a Panaglide. So I guess it was like a Steadicam knockoff or whatever.
Yeah.
But it is obviously not in an era where somebody has a mastery of it, or you know what I mean, or it is very
maybe Michael Myers.
One, two. I guess part of it is Michael.
You lost all that blood.
Yeah, I was gonna say because they do have like it does show him having blood on his hands or having blood dripped around him. So you have those elements, and then you have Laurie. When she gets to the hospital. So Jamie Lee Curtis kind of got restricted in her performance over this movie because Laurie is still in shock of what happened and having to deal with it. And then being like medicated in the hospital and having to like limp around and crawl around.
So here's, I think, again, I used to like this film a lot more watching again. I think this is why it is where it fails at, is that this film does not have a main character. You know what I mean? Like Loomis comes in and he's kind of active in his role, but then also he disappears, much like he does in the
one of my favorite things in the entire movie is when Loomis is talking to one of the sheriffs or the cops. The cop takes out the cigarettes and gives him a cigarette, and he takes it and just holds it. And then the cop gives him the lighter, and he just takes the lighter and holds it. And
he's too wrapped up in what he's saying.
So and then it plays into the end of the movie, of course. Yeah. But just Loomis. Like I think that the movie would have benefited.
What if he just a klepto the entire movie? Every time he's talking,
like you have to watch for it, but he's still
steals the cop's gun and just holds it, and he steals his bag.
Loomis, he disappears, and then Laurie is not like there's no. He's an active protagonist, but he's not the main character, and Laurie is. Even though maybe she's the quote-unquote main character, she's not active at all. Like, she is a boring main character in this film until the end. And, like, everybody else, we just cut to scenes of people getting killed. You know what I mean? It's just so...
Here's her crawling in the hallway.
Yeah.
And two, like, it's not really her fault or anything. Because in real life, the character probably would be in that situation.
Yeah, but...
But then, like, the thing I think that was missed opportunity was... you had a point where you could make one of the other nurses kind of the protagonist, or you can make the character Jimmy kind of the protagonist.
Essentially, this movie is if they took the end of Rocky 1 and had Rocky 2 where Apollo Creed and Rocky fought in the hospital, and they're all beat up, and they just can't do much. That's what this is.
Yeah, and the middle of this film, like, sags so much.
And really, I think that if you were to, like, I mean, this is sacrilege, but if you were to cut Halloween 1 and 2 together and trim down the Halloween 2 portion to be about 20 minutes or 30 minutes, then you could have a much stronger product.
There was a guy I worked with. I think either he had a cut of that or he had cut that together, basically.
Because when Halloween 1 ends, Halloween 2, if you just had it be just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Because there's been a lot of movies recently. Oh, what was it? There was a remake we had done. Was it the Black Christmas remake? Mm-hmm. Where a character goes to the hospital and there's like another 10, 15-minute segment. So it feels like this movie could have essentially been a 10 to 15-minute segment on the end of Halloween 1.
Yeah.
Or, like I said, I think that the things that it did really well, like when you had Michael going around the neighborhood, that was really effective. When he went into the older couple's house and stole the knife and then went and killed the younger girl. then that could have been really effective if he just continued to do that until he got caught by the police and killed. But then they kind of take a swerve and go to the hospital and have him hear on the radio. Like, I just wonder, like, even in the 80s, after, like, a brutal massacre, would the radio announcers have said where they took the victim in terms of the hospital?
Maybe.
I don't
Possibly.
think they would.
Well, if you think about it, though, if it's supposed to be a small town where nothing exciting ever happens, and then this happens, they probably would.
I mean, I guess
Sometimes they need
because
time.
you forget how like inept some. And I'm not making fun of small towns or anything, but like
No, for sure.
But like when something like that happens, it's like the biggest thing ever.
one too,
you
and
know.
And also, sometimes they want to fill time.
Yeah.
That's what I know. When I worked in news, they'd be like, oh, we need to fill, this needs to be a 15-second script. We'll just start putting in random stuff that doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Like, it's just...
Yeah, so like somebody would get this information and say this is the first time that's ever happened in that town.
And we did watch
Or the second time.
with the theatrical cut, not that producer's cut re-release
Yeah.
or anything,
Yeah.
which I want to watch that. I've never seen that.
He's
but-
like, Laurie Strode is in whatever hospital in room, blah, blah, blah.
she's in.
If you want the fastest route, go in door 3.
Yeah,
It's
and
like,
then
no.
So then you also had the element that I thought was kind of cool of you see the character it's walking around they think is Michael Myers, and then they freak out, and then he gets hit by a car and blown up and caught on fire, and then later the kids come up and say, yeah, our friend's got he was drunk and he looks like this and he's wearing this
Yeah.
costume and we haven't seen him.
They just got him strung up in the middle of town. And
And
like,
they're
oh,
like,
that's
"Oh, damn it."
Yeah, I mean, that was great. Like, yeah, if there was some trims to this movie, it could be so much stronger. You know what I mean? Basically, just zero in on Loomis and what he's doing. You know what I mean? His, like,
stealing stuff.
Well,
his pursuit or something.
Well, the first Halloween, I think part of the reason that Loomis disappears in parts of it is because it's a budgetary
Yes,
thing, and
for sure.
they had him on set for a limited number of days. It seems like with this movie, they would have had the money to pony up and get him in more of it if they wanted.
Well, I just want cuts to him just in all the houses Michael Myers had been in. He's just stealing all the shit.
What was it when he was in the bushes yelling at Jimmy or whatever in the first?
Jimmy,
What does he yell at him? He's like, doesn't he yell a cuss word at him or something?
You son of a bitch.
If you just have,
damn it.
like if the sequel had just been Michael bumbling around the neighborhood, like starting to get kind of woozy from blood loss, killing teenagers and people, and you have Loomis going around trying to scare people and find them, and then but Loomis is like, I mean, this movie is kind of like a pro gun movie because he just whips the gun out and it's like pop, 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 pop.
Yeah.
But then again, it doesn't do anything against Michael, so.
Well, maybe he just.
And then Laurie is like the dead shot of all like bullseye, accuracy masters because she shoots him in both eyes directly.
No eyes.
Because pop, pop, right in the eyes. And that's really hard to do.
No, not
I know
when
for
you're
a
her.
fact because
No,
I've had
she's
to
so good.
fight for my life against.
I mean, as we know, the new film, she's going to be a dead eye apparently with her gun.
she's going to be Hawkeye
Yeah.
in the new Avengers. But the movie itself, so it's one of those things where watching these movies, so you had Halloween 1 and 2, which really told like one story in effect of Michael coming out of the mental institution, going after people, then you learn it's his sister, and then him getting blown up by Loomis, who was his doctor. So that kind of completes the circle. So then they went to Halloween 3, which is like, okay, let's make this an anthology. So we finished the Myers story, let's make a new story, and people did not like that.
Yeah, but like again, I enjoyed it.
Over time, people have realized that Halloween 3 is kind of a gem, that it's a fun movie,
It's a much better film than Halloween 2.
Yeah.
and it did something
pretty
original,
original.
and it's fun.
Yeah.
But then people rejected it so hard, it took them a number of years because Halloween 3 came out in like 82 or 3, so it came out like right after Halloween 2, and then it took them years to make Halloween 4.
But like Halloween 3 has one of the most disturbing like scenes I remember from a kid when a lady gets her face blown
Yeah.
up. And it's like that still holds up. It's like today. So like I like that.
So Halloween, yeah, I mean,
and Halloween 2 doesn't have anything like
Halloween 2 is not a bad movie. It's better
kind
than
of-
a lot
it's-
of.
it's pretty boring.
So let me say, I was gonna say it's not like a bad movie.
No, it's not bad.
in the way that like Jason Goes to Hell is,
Or like Jason Takes
X
or Manhattan.
I think this is. I mean, I think Halloween 2 is better than Halloween 6.
Yeah.
The Curse
But
of Michael Myers.
I think the
High bar.
I think the problem with this movie, to me, outside of the very end where Michael Myers gets shot and killed and he's like on fire and they kind of go out on that.
yeah.
There's nothing memorable in this. Like I couldn't tell
most
you.
memorable
I just
thing-
watched it like the other day and I don't
Yeah.
remember
The most
much
memorable
about it.
portion is kind of using Mr. Sandman as opening music.
Yeah, and wasn't that also in the outro too?
Yeah.
So it's
and
like
then they use that for H2O.
but it's
to
like,
some extent.
and I literally just watched this like Friday night. I don't remember much of it.
Again, like, there was no like main driving force in the film where you're following somebody and you're like, there isn't any steps of progression. Like when he is in pursuit and looking for him, that is good.
Yeah.
Loomis, that stuff is good, and you're like, Loomis is a great character. You know what I mean? He's a great actor. Like you're engaged there. Then when we just cut to, rain on people having sex in the hospital,
In the hot tub.
So much sex.
I mean,
in the hospital.
she gets topless, so I'm sure in the theaters that that was a bonus for
Got an
people.
applause.
But
One applause.
But if you're just trying to watch like a good movie, like it has so many elements where it's the trappings that a lot of the Friday 13th fall into, where okay, now we're going to see a series of kills. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And even Nightmare on Elm Street 4, which we're doing for the next podcast, that also has them. You know what I mean? Like they're way more inventive than this is.
Yeah, way more.
And memorable, but at the same time, they don't really help the story that much.
I think that Halloween
make much sense.
So Halloween 2, so Halloween 1, the thing that made me love that, and I hope they do that in the new one, is it was based in the suburbs and it was multiple houses and it felt more like a wide open movie. As opposed to Halloween 2 was more set in the single location of the hospital for the majority of the movie's runtime once they kind of got settled in. So to me, I mean, they did have some intercutting with Loomis and other people going other places, but the most of the movie took place at the hospital. I mean, that's been a trick forever in movies, is to shoot at a single location. But I think that inspired even more slashers to double down and to set everything at one kind of closed-in location. Because even though the Friday the 13th often take place at the camp or surrounding camps, it feels more wide open because they're in a space that you could just go run out into the the woods. You could go and jump in the lake. You can go find a car and get away. As opposed to Halloween 2 feels more closed in because you're in the hospital for most of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
they
one of the
do
most-
intercut some of Loomis outside, so it feels a little open in some regards.
Yeah, so I'm saying like there are some scenes that take place outside of that with the police.
But
and
this movie just feels like you kind of said much smaller.
it feels smaller in scope, but by design. But like I said, I think that if you were to cut this movie down significantly and add it onto the end of Halloween 1, if that's the story arc you want to tell for that story, that a 2-hour movie, or 2 hours to 2 hours 15 minutes, somewhere like not a super long runtime movie, then you have a full story. Just if the next piece is just Michael going to the hospital,
Well,
and then Loomis, but as it is, like I said, the character of Jimmy's one of the most useless characters because he just gets a concussion that's like so severe that he can get up and leave, but then he passes out again.
Well, what really want to happen is when the new Halloween comes out, then I want to release a super cut. But what it is, when you watch the original Halloween, and then there's certain points in the movie where this question pops up on screen, and you answer the question, and then that either gives you Halloween 2 or the new Halloween.
or 2, so you can have one where you watch Halloween 1 and then you watch Halloween 2, and at the end of it, it says, do Laura or not Laura? Do Laurie and Jimmy hook up and have Jamie as their child, and then Laurie dies in a car crash, and Jamie gets sent to live with the adoptive parents? Yes, and then you have that, and then you have like the Halloween 5. And then they say, is Michael controlled by a Celtic curse? And you say yes, and it goes to Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. And then at the end of the movie, it says, are you happy with this ending, or do you think it was terrible? And if you select it was terrible, then it goes to Halloween H2O. And then you watch Halloween H2O, and it goes to the end of that. It goes to Halloween Resurrection. And then it's
It just
like
keeps going.
And then it says, would you like to see Rob Zombie's take on this? And then you see those movies. At the end, it's
I think
like,
when
were
it
you
comes up-
unhappy? And then you click yes. And then it's like, would you like to see everything just take place, assuming that the end of Halloween 1 was the end?
I think when it comes up to the Rob Zombie question, there should be no yes, just no and no. Because those are some hard movies to watch.
So those are movies where they're a very specific style and tone and everything. Like
I enjoy those in theater. The first one.
So Rob
Hated the second one.
Zombie's Halloween 1 and 2. If you compare those to Halloween 1 and 2, so 78 and 81, they're so tonally different in what they accomplish in the end. But I think that something to me, like the original Halloween, felt like this Rob Zombie, like how to make a serial killer movie that then smashed like a Halloween remake into 30 minutes. And I felt like it was the weaker for it, as opposed to Halloween 2 feels like they had like an interesting idea about where to take Michael Myers after the first movie, and then they smashed it into this hospital set piece.
At least there's no unicorn.
But yeah, but but then there are some kills, like when you're watching it, you're like, well, if Michael's not supernatural, how come he's able to push the nurse's face in the boiling hot tub, and it burns her face, but it doesn't make his hands get burnt up and peel back. And,
Because he had a glove on.
No,
He had
he's wearing
a
gloves.
welder's glove on the entire time. You didn't see it.
It's
why
flesh
handy.
colored.
Yeah, it's
So
handy.
like Halloween 2 is one of those movies where this one I saw it on TV a lot. Ashy Slashy is coming into.
He's
attack.
attacking me.
But it was a movie that I saw on TV a lot, even if it wasn't a movie that I really loved. And when I saw it, I was always like, "Oh, why isn't the first one on?"
Yeah.
And watching the second one, it's like, okay, it's not the worst of the Halloween movies, but it's also not the best.
I think
it's nowhere near the best. You know, is it better than Halloween 5? Probably.
Yeah, because Halloween
Is it
5
better? Is
or
it better than
6 is the
Halloween
one-
6?
There's one where the girl goes in a laundry chute and Michael Myers literally just puts his hand in there and is like, he flips the knife
Yeah,
around.
I
It's the
remember
worst
that,
scene
yeah.
ever.
That is
A lot of the later ones I've only seen on TV.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In bits and pieces.
Yeah, well, like-
because every time I see parts of them, I'm like, okay, this is nothing that I want to seek out and watch. You know what I mean? Like,
I wanted a super cut of like the later Halloween films because like he's kind of a doofus in the later ones. I guess
Yeah.
it's just the way the actor portrays him. But you could almost like super cut that into like almost a Three Stooge esque type thing because he's very inept.
Yeah, because you have Michael. I'm trying to talk with the puppet. I'm not a puppeteer, but obviously, but Halloween 2, like when you rank the franchise, so I guess we could do, because giving score, we do like, where would you rank this in the Halloween franchise, including all the films?
Well,
Is
I
it
mean-
top half, bottom half, middle.
so 1 and 3 I think are really good. H2O is pretty cool.
We need to
in
do that
some
one because
regards.
that one, like, we'll have to do that at some point and just devote an episode because how that movie is aged is interesting. Is it?
Didn't we do that one?
So we kind of talked about we talked about the entire series. I don't think we devoted anything to it.
Okay.
So we'll have
we need
to
to
go
get to a lot before the new one and before they're all erased from existence.
Yes.
But yeah, this is below H2O, I think.
No, yeah.
And then
Like-
the other ones, like I said, I watched on TV, like big chunks of them, but never really
So I
sit
think
down and
when
watch
you-
them from beginning to end.
So I think Halloween 1 is obviously top. But then you get into like Halloween 4 to me feels like a very straightforward movie that doesn't really do anything,
Which
egregious.
ones with the cops? They're
Yeah,
like doofuses.
So 4 is the one where they have like the rednecks that have the truck and Michael's under the truck and they shoot him and he falls down the well.
yeah.
5 is the one that takes place mostly at the farm party.
Yeah,
where
5's-
Michael drives the Camaro around for the entire movie.
Bitchin'.
And
Yeah, I
then
did
6,
watch those recently
And then
all the way
6,
through.
6 has Paul Rudd as Tommy Doyle.
That's the
wish-
one I was. So I did watch
Yeah.
like 4. I did not like. That's the one Nathan likes a lot.
But
right?
I think a lot of it's what your entry point to the franchise
Yeah, and
was.
that's what his was.
And mine was
4.
always watching the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and 4, I do not think that is good.
4 is better than 5.
Yeah.
5. I think 4 is better than 5 and 6. But I
Yeah.
think that Halloween 1 is the top. Like Halloween 3, I would rate pretty highly.
I
but
almost
kind
have
of,
them like side by side.
Halloween 3, I almost want to take out though because it's so disconnected
Yeah.
from the rest
But
of
it is
them.
a Halloween movie.
But like I would say, to me, it's like Halloween 1 and 3,
Then
and then
kind of wherever else.
maybe like H2O, and then
Yeah.
Halloween 2, and then the
Well,
rest of them are
no
all kind
point in
of.
time to even bring up Resurrection because it's so bad. But
Which is funny because Resurrection, like if you were to make that movie now with like the webcams and all the stuff, that would almost be feasibly possible. It is possible now for that movie to actually happen.
yeah.
It wasn't that possible for that movie to happen the way it played out in 2002 or 3 or whatever.
But if I had when you talk about rating the movies, it's like 1 and 3. Then it really to me it's just kind of like.
You don't care?
Yeah, I don't care. Like you could, me growing up and like watching AMC Fear Fest like every year. Like I've watched the hell out of 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah.
because those are the ones that they've had the rights to the most.
Well, and-
the only reason why
they play those all the time.
I just really wish we got Ray-Ban Freddy. I really wish you could got like Oakley Michael because it'd be funny if he's driving the Camaro and every time he drove it, he had like
Or blue blockers?
Yeah,
Is that what big in the
but he
80s?
had like rat plane or something. He put his sunglasses on and
What's
like
funny
burn
is,
out.
so those franchises, Freddy started out scary but got to be funny, because he's like, welcome to my nightmare. I can't talk.
Is he Nick?
No, he's like, bitch.
bitch. That's all
So you had the movie, so they got funny and had like gags.
It was very
and special
meta,
effects. Jason with Friday the 13th went meta with Jason Lives and was almost like a precursor to Scream because they kind of poked fun at their own tropes. Halloween always played it straight. And to
Oh,
his
you
detriment-
say that, but then Michael Myers is like walking around the house with a switchblade going like this, and then there's like two bumbling cops, and Loomis is like on a walker with like
Yes.
machine guns
So
on his
somehow
shoulders. It's
The
like,
room is engulfed in flames and blows up, and the only
is the 80-year-old doctor.
Dr.
you know?
Loomis gets like a little bit of burn.
Yeah,
on his
he's
face.
like,
That's right,
Michael.
because the opening of 4, they have
Yeah.
the bad prosthetic effects. with
Yeah,
the burn
because like
mark.
we all love Dr. Loomis,
Yeah.
the original.
Yeah, Donald
one.
Pleasance is
Yeah, Donald
amazing.
Pleasance, but it's just like at some point, it's like he's like in the nursing home in the iron lung. He's like, I need to go to action, and he gets out and he gets on his walker and goes out with the shotgun. It's like, okay, you know, they just kind of like with Charles Bronson in Death Wish. At some point, it's like, you can't do this anymore. You
Yeah.
can't go blow people with rocket launchers. You can't go blow up houses. I almost said Michael Jackson.
Yeah, so
Michael Myers in it. You know,
So I think we've all like established Halloween, like Halloween 1 and 3, and then the rest of them are all kind of.
What was the last one Loomis was in?
6? Unfortunately,
Okay,
that was
'Cause he
the
in
last.
6.
That was like the last
'Cause
movie he was in before Donald Pleasance passed
H2O.
away.
He passed away, so he wasn't in it. Yeah,
Which is sad because like an H2O was one that felt more substantial till they gave it a terrible follow up in Resurrection.
Yeah.
If they had just left Halloween H2O, then I would have felt much better about it than if they essentially made it where
the problem is it made money, and then people are like, well, if it made money, you know.
Yeah. So in terms of scores, do we give it like a score out of 10?
I don't know. I mean, like
It's kind of pointless.
There's some cool stuff in there. Like I said, I love the opening.
Yeah.
I love Loomis, his segments. He's wild, but I don't know, maybe like a 6 or something.
He's wilding out in it. Yeah, I mean that's where I'm at, 5 or 6. Like
Yeah.
honestly, it was really boring. I forgot most of it. I watched it Friday. I threw a tennis ball with my dog most of the time, and my cat has a hairband that she'll go after. So that's mainly what I did when I watched this movie.
My memory of it was like probably at 8.5.
Yeah. You
but-
remember it being better than you watch. It's like, man, this is really.
Well, I think when I was a
boring.
kid and I watched like the Halloween 1 and 2 on TV, they didn't have to cut a ton out on TV for like the 10 p.m. showings on AMC or whatever. But
But this is the one I don't want to watch. Like, when,
yeah,
when
like, so
Halloween's come on, if it's not one.
it's not the worst one, but it's one that I'm not really energized to
Well,
watch.
actually, the problem with this movie, there's not enough Josh Hartnett in it, and so we don't get that fixed for like another 20 years.
I think Busta Rhymes would have improved it.
Or both of them together at the same time.
But yeah, so scores, you know, like I fall in the same range, you know, 5.5 or something. Like, you know, it's watchable, and you know, I enjoyed it at a period of time, but I enjoy it less now.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll wrap up our discussion of Halloween 2 from 1981.
Next week's Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Yeah, the Dream Master, because we've
We're-
done if you look through the old podcast, we've done parts 1 through 3.
Yeah.
So you
I
can
think
go
it was like
listen to-
2, 1, 3. We did it out of order.
No, we did one,
We did one. Then it
a
was
long
two-
time ago
yeah,
because
okay.
the one was lumped in with our discussion of the Ash vs. Evil Dead trailer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And then 2, we had Nathan Thomas Milner on to discuss Freddy's Revenge because he was a fan of that movie and had some connections to that franchise in general because he didn't like the fan film and other artwork and stuff.
And he knows the lead actor.
That was doing
Yeah.
that directed the documentary
Mhm.
about the movie. And then 3 we had done at some point in the past year or
Yeah.
so. So we decided to go to the next one in the series, 4, which was one of the most financially successful ones in the franchise, and one that was when Freddy kind of became like a huge pop culture icon. But yeah, so on the next one we'll be discussing Nightmare on Elm Street 4. So if you're listening via iTunes, you can do us a huge favor and leave a review that helps other people find the podcast and helps us move up the iTunes charts. We always enjoy seeing feedback on YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or anywhere like that. You can always send us an email at podcast@housebybestore.com. You can find links to all of our social media accounts on the website, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, all those places. We have a short that's out now, like a shorts under 2 minutes called Sneakers that's on YouTube and Facebook that you can check out and let us know what you think. Got some more stuff in the works, hopefully to get out this year, but so keep an eye out for that. But if you want to find us specifically on the internet, you can find me on Twitter at William Caps.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on at MetaWorld Derek.
And I'm at Blevin Sean on Twitter.
Yep, and that'll bring this episode of the House by VSR podcast to a close. Thanks for listening.